you, sir. Good afternoon. Welcome to Africa Canada Education Foundation. My name is Letitia. Sir, please briefly introduce yourself, your name, what you do, and where you live.
My name is Syed Khan, and I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. In short, it stands for RCIC. I am here to help people who are looking for advice relating to Canada immigration.
All right. Thank you. When did you start your business?
I started my business in the year 1994, where there were no regulatory bodies in place. The regulatory bodies, in fact, only came into existence in the year 2003, and I took upon myself at that time to become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, and today I am in good standing as a RCIC with the College of Immigration Consultants.
Thank you. Where is your business located?
My business is centrally located in the city of Surrey. However, I work with clients throughout the world, as it is not necessary for anyone to be in Canada to take advantage of my services.
Services do you provide?
Many people who are coming to our company are interested in becoming permanent residents. So that's a major service that people are looking at. Now, you must carry on a certain process, and that process is quite intricate because it depends on the laws, the regulations based on the Act. Now, this itself is a process that we as experienced consultants can help individuals. And I can help Immigration Services specializes in different types of applications, one being a PR application, the other being a family spousal application, the other being a provincial nominee, which is the PNP, and finally, there are other areas, which is a study permit and a visitor team. Now, if the question is, how does one come to Canada as a student? The first answer, I think the first thing that one must really understand is that there is a language benchmark, and that is the IELTS academic. The second thing is that one must have finances, which means that the government is expecting a GIC account, and a GIC account means Guaranteed Investment Certificate of minimum of $11,000, plus you must pay 50% of what the school fee is going to be. Now, I've recently spoken to someone, and the fee was about $16,000, and the school expected him or her to pay $8,000. So, in summary, in order to become eligible, IELTS academic is a must. Secondly, the finances is absolutely critical. Thirdly, the letter of acceptance from the university is there. And fourthly is the study permit process application, which I can help immigration services can complete for this individual.
Who are your clients?
I can help immigration clients worldwide. And the basic fundamental rule is, how does this individual meet what Canada is looking for in terms of eligibility requirement? And the eligibility requirement then depends on your age, your education, your experience back home, and the level of experience. Are you, for example, a manager? Are you a supervisor? Or you have trade skills? And that is what the government is looking for. And then the final thing that one must understand is Canada is also looking for settlement funds. So if the family unit, say for example, comprises of 2 people, husband and wife, then Canada is looking for a minimum of $12,000 that they must demonstrate in their bank account, saying, when we are given immigration, we will have $12,000. So when you come here, we're not going to go on to the government situation asking for money.
How do you do what you do?
I have always had a very strong desire to work with people. And that is one of the reasons that you see that I've coined the logo as I can help immigration. So working with families, working with individuals is very, very fulfilling to myself, and has been there for many years that I've been in business.
How do you do what you do?
As I mentioned, I find pleasure working with families and individuals, because working with families and individuals is very, very fulfilling to myself. And if I can help people and help families to settle down in Canada, then naturally I would have their blessings too.
Advice do you have for the new immigrants to Canada?
One of the best advice that I would have for a family or an individual coming to Canada is to take advantage of the pre-arrival services that the government of Canada is offering. And one could actually go to www.cic.gc.ca and you will get a lot of information.
What are the services new immigrants can access when they arrive in Canada?
The government of Canada has a non-profit organization, and to mention a few, the first one is Mosaic, the second one is Success. And if you are a new immigrant, you can go and approach them without having to pay for their services, and they will identify your concerns and make out a map as to how and what you should be doing in order to be successful in Canada.
Should the future immigrants know before deciding to immigrate to Canada?
My first recommendation, honestly, is to go and research what Canada is all about. What are you going and what are your expectations when you arrive in Canada? The key component here, again, is knowing English or French and getting to know the nuance of phrases that are commonly spoken either in French or English, and to find out how we could make this language a better component in terms of speaking.
Why should anyone want to migrate to Canada? In other words, what makes Canada an ideal country to migrate to?
Canada is very different to any other country in the world. It is rated as the best country to live in terms of settling down with families. One is there is unconditional universal health system, which in my words is called the MSP. Second thing is that up till K-12, you are not paying for education. Which means that a person coming in and he has a child who is 5 years old, and then he would not have to pay for education all the way till he becomes 18 and graduates from high school. Now, just to get an idea what is the cost that is involved in education. For a foreigner to educate a child in Canada is $15,500 per child. So if you had 5 children, it would cost you $75,000. So that's a big saving for someone who is coming into the country. The other thing is that if you really look at the passport index, right, you will see that Canada passport takes you to 180 countries without a visa. And Canada passport is rated on the index as number 5 in the world, which is even better than what most people may think, that it is better than a US passport. And hats off to Canada.
What advice do you have for the new immigrants in terms of adapting to a new country?
My best advice would be an individual's attitude. And the attitude means a can-do attitude. I would be willing to do anything to provide bread and butter to my family in Canada. That's the can-do. A lot of people may think that, okay, I'm very well educated, I'm not getting a job. But getting a job or not getting a job would then translate into the can-do attitude that yes, one day I will find a job related to my experience.
What are typical culture shocks a new immigrant is likely to experience, and how do they prepare for them?
This would depend on each individual because circumstances of each individual are going to be unique, and they would have to understand how they can adapt themselves to this benchmark of settling down in Canada. And then the other important thing is the adaptability to the climate conditions, especially if you're talking about Vancouver, right? And if you're coming from a hot country, right? It rains here the majority of the time. So you need to adapt to that situation, right? And then, so that is the climate. And the other thing is that if you are coming from an eastern country, for example, you're driving on the right-hand side of the road, and here you come to Canada and you're driving on the left-hand side of the road. So these are some of the cultural shocks, if you want to call nuances of Canada, right, that one would experience, right? And eventually, over a period of time, I think one would get settled with this.
What are the do's and don'ts for the new immigrants?
The first thing that I'd like to sort of bring to the attention of a new immigrant, file your taxes with the Canada Revenue Agency. There are many benefits to that. Filing your taxes, your spouse, if you're married, would get the child benefit. There is the GST that the government provides, right? So filing the taxes has many advantages, including getting child benefit. That's one. Secondly, do not cross your borders and get into anything that would involve law and order. Because law and order in Canada is very, very tight rope. And I think one has to be very careful in doing that. And the second thing is to look at the future of yourself, what I would like to do. If one can afford, find out what courses one can take during the evening to go and abreast yourself. How can I change or challenge exams to become, for example, a nurse? Nurse is a regulated occupation, so therefore you have to give certain exam. Pharmacist is a regulated occupation. You must challenge an exam in order to become a pharmacist. So therefore, the payoff at the end is if you truly become a regulated individual in the occupation that you have, then there is a benefit because you'll earn more money.
What are the typical frequently asked questions by a new immigrant, and what are the answers?
What I would encourage, I think, a new immigrant is one, to go to our site. And the site is very simple, www.icanhelpimmigration.com. And we have an elaborate site, and we've answered a lot of questions, talked about education, talked about different options of immigration, and yes, I would certainly encourage people to go and visit us.
Last question for you is, how can people reach you?
People can reach me very simply. One, through telephone, 778-239-7861. And my number has never changed in the last 25 years. My WhatsApp number is the same. My email address is syed.khan at icanhelpimmigration.com. And I would be more than happy to answer any questions